welcome back to Googie's Kitchen, and if you are new here then hello and welcome. My name's Alexis and today I want to show you how to make my dad's homemade apple pie. As I just mentioned, today I want to show you how to make my dad's homemade apple pie. Now, my dear old dad wasn't the greatest dessert maker. He much preferred to make savoury meals, but this was one of his favourites to make. He loved making this apple pie, and I know a few people who really enjoyed eating it as well. My husband and son included in that list. So I've made a variation on my dad's apple pie, and I'm going to make this for my husband and son today. And while I was making it, I thought I'd share the recipe with you. So here is how to make my dad's homemade apple pie. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the pastry. So in this bowl here, I have 200 grams of wholemeal spelt flour, which I'm going to just put in there. And then I have about 100 grams of cold cut butter. So I've just cut the butter into cubes like that. And I'm just going to add these two ingredients together. And I'm going to rub the butter into the flour. Now, if you watched my last video, I made a video on homemade sausage rolls, which were also one of my dad's favourites. And I did exactly the same to make the pastry in that. So if you want to fast forward this point, then please do. Or if you want to check out the other video, then I'll link it in the description box below for you. But all I'm going to do now is just rub the butter and the flour together until it forms breadcrumbs. So I've rubbed the butter and the flour together until they form breadcrumbs like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add an egg in to this. And then if I need to, I'm also going to add in a bit of milk. Last time I didn't need to because my egg was big enough to glue the butter and the flour together. So everything's sort of glued together, but I'm not sure if the same is going to happen today. So I've got about 3 tablespoons of oat milk. Now you can use ordinary milk if you want to. I use oat milk because I have a little bit of an allergy to milk and dairy and things. I'm alright on butter, but milk I find makes my stomach a bit funny. So I like to use a little bit of oat milk. You can use other types of milk as well. So yeah, I'm just mixing this together until it forms a dough ball, and I think this is fine the way it is. I may have to add like a tablespoon of milk to this, I don't know. The last pastry that I made was delicious, but it was quite crumbly, so I am going to add a little bit of milk. I'm going to add a tablespoon of milk to this as well. I've got to add the salt in. Silly Billy! I'm also going to add like a pinch of salt to this as well. So I'll just add that in now and then mix that in. That should be fine. That is perfect pastry there, I have to say. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the fridge for about half an hour just to let the butter set again. I also forgot to say that I'm going to wrap it in cling film before I put it in the fridge. So I'm just going to tear myself off a piece of cling film, like so, and I'm going to wrap the pastry up and then I'm going to put it in the fridge. It's Sunday, forgive me. So now on to the filling, and I have my apples here. I like to use eating apples, but you can use cooking apples if you want to. What I'm going to do is just share with you how I like to cut my apples. So I like to cut them in half, excuse me, and then I like to cut them into quarters, and then what I do is, well, I don't know what's going on with my voice. Excuse me. I like to cut the core out by slicing down the middle, and then I just cut the end off with any extra skin on. Cut those ends off and the funny little bit at the end. The fairy bit you always get at the end. And then I just cut these into little chunks. So I halve them and then I quarter them again, and I get like a centimetre piece. and I just put that in there. So I'll just show you again, hopefully without my voice going funny. So I like to just put the knife down like that. So I like to make a triangle from the core. So basically that's the core there, and I've just made a triangle, and what I'm going to do is just top and tail them as well, take off the extra skin that I can get with the peeler, and then I just cut them into quarters like so. Let's take that skin off. And I'm just going to continue to peel the rest of these apples now. Right, so I have peeled and chopped all of my apples, as you can see there, and now I'm going to add about 2 large handfuls of sultanas to the pan, and I'm also going to add about 200 mils of apple juice. Now, my dad would have used cider to cook his apples. My mum and dad used to have an apple tree in their back garden, and they'd pick the apples, and then my dad would stew them all in cider, and he'd leave them in glass jars so they could make this apple pie really quickly. We do have an apple tree, but it only grows about 6 to 8 apples a year, and it grew them in August, so I've never been able to manage to do that, but I'm going to just use apple juice instead, because obviously I'm feeding this to Ted as well, so I'd rather he doesn't have alcohol at this time in his life at the moment. And then I'm going to add half a teaspoon of cloves to that as well. You don't want too much cloves, just a little bit, because it's a very strong flavour. And I'm also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg as well. And then I'm just going to stir these round, so I'm going to go and get a spoon. So I'm stirring these round now, like so, and I'm going to go and put this onto the hob on a high heat and bring it to the boil, and then I'm going to leave it to simmer for about 20 minutes. So while the apples are cooking, I'm going to turn the oven on and I'm going to preheat it to 200 degrees. So my pastry has been in the fridge for about half an hour, and I'm just going to cut it now, and I'm going to cut it and roll it out into my pie dish, which I have here. So for the base I'm going to use about 2/3 of the pastry, and for the top I'm going to use about 1/3. So I'm just going to cut it like that. So I've cut 1/3 away, and I'm just going to put that to one side, and then I'm going to get some pastry, some flour, some extra flour, and I'm just going to roll it onto my board, or rub it onto my board like so. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to roll this out, and it has to be bigger than your pie dish, the piece of pastry that you've cut away for the base. So I'm just going to continue rolling this now until I've made it bigger than the pie dish itself. So to check that the pastry base is bigger than my pie dish, I simply just put the pie dish on top like that, and if it comes out bigger then it's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift this pastry into the pie dish. Don't worry if it breaks, you can always glue it back together and push it around. Pastry is very mouldable, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to mould this together again once it's in the pie dish, like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. A rustic looking apple pie I think is always better than natural apple pie. And I'm using stoneware to cook this apple pie with as well. So if you aren't using stoneware, sorry, then I would suggest you oil the base. With stoneware you don't have to oil the base. It should just cook and come out quite nicely in this, I hope. She says. I have cooked apple pies in this quite a few times, and they always come out beautifully cooked, so that's why I like to use it. Stoneware, this I bought from Pampered Chef, which no longer exists in the UK. I think it's still available in America, and it cooks things perfectly, so it takes out all of the badness from the food and just leaves the goodness. So it's a great way to cook food. So if you have got a pampered chef in America, then I suggest you use them. They're sold through consultants. I don't think they sell them in any shops or anything in America. So that's my pastry all nicely put in here, like so. So that's perfect in there. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and get my cooked apples. So I've just grabbed my apples. I cooked them for about 20 minutes and then I left them to cool for a little while. So I'm now just going to put the apples on top of the pastry, like so. And don't worry about the juice, it will still all cook. It won't make the bottom soggy, I promise. And now I'm going to roll out the top and I'm going to put it on top of the apples. So I'm just going to get my rolling pin again and I'm going to roll out the top like so. So I'll just continue to do this now until I get a lovely big round piece for the top. I've finished rolling out my lovely big piece of pastry and now I'm just going to put this on top of the apple pie, and again, don't worry too much if it doesn't stretch that far. You can always fix it with other pieces of pastry, like so. Across in the middle, and this is to help the steam come out of the pie and to make sure the top doesn't go all soggy and stuff. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes or until the pastry goes lovely and golden brown. So I have finished cooking my pie and it's a lovely golden brown colour. All the juice is coming out from the sides, as you can see. It smells really nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this on a cooling rack and leave it to cool for probably a good couple of hours, because this stays quite warm for a while. This dish that I've used stays quite warm. I left this to cool for a couple of hours and I just cut myself a slice, and I'm really looking forward to this. It smells delicious. The recipe I will link in the description box below for you. But for now, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and please feel free to leave any comments below. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you all soon. Bye!